Close your eyes and picture Las Vegas. Go ahead. You already know what you see. Neon tubes buzzing pink and orange against a desert night. A lounge singer in a tuxedo. Ice melting in a glass on the piano. Showgirls in feathers. Men in sharp suits who don't smile with their eyes. Counting money in a back room while Sinatra's voice drifts through the walls. That Las Vegas. The one in every movie. Every postcard. Every bachelor party promise ever made. Here is the thing nobody tells you when you land at the airport. That Las Vegas does not exist. Not one piece of it. The casinos you just pictured, the actual buildings, were packed with dynamite and dropped into their own basements, one by one, over about 15 years. Not by an earthquake, not by decay, by the companies that own the new Las Vegas. They sold tickets, they threw parties. Crowds cheered as the towers came down, and fireworks went off, and the dust rolled across the strip like something out of a war film. Then the cranes came in and built shopping malls with hotel rooms on top. The men who built the old city are gone too. Some deported, some imprisoned, at least one shot through a living room window, one found buried in a cornfield. The singers are gone. The feathered showgirls are gone as a way of life. What's left is the name. 2 words, Las Vegas, that still sell you mobsters and neon and sin, printed on the receipts of some of the largest, most respectable, most lawyer-heavy corporations in America. This is the story of how that happened. How a city run by killers became a city run by shareholders. How the corporations bought the legend, demolished the evidence, and kept the sign. It starts on a 2-lane highway in the desert, and it ends in a food court. And the strange part, the part that should bother you, is that almost nobody who cheered at the implosions understood what they were actually watching. To understand what was destroyed, you have to understand what was built, and who built it, and why it could never have been built by anyone respectable. Las Vegas in the 1930s was a dusty railroad stop with legal gambling. Nevada had legalized it in 1931, and not much else. The famous strip isn't even in the city of Las Vegas. It grew up along Highway 91, the road in from Los Angeles, just outside the city line, where the county was in charge and the rules were looser. The first resorts out there in the early 1940s were Western-themed motor lodges, dude ranch fantasies with slot machines. Pleasant, small, forgettable. Then came the Flamingo and everything that Las Vegas would become for the next 40 years. The Flamingo opened at the end of 1946, and the man whose name is welded to it forever was Benjamin Siegel, Bugsy, though never to his face. Siegel was a killer out of the New York mob, handsome as a movie star, connected to movie stars, and he poured mob money into a resort that wasn't a cowboy fantasy at all. It was Hollywood glamour dropped into the desert, tuxedos, imported everything, class, or at least the gangster's dream of class. The construction ran brutally over budget with other people's money, and the men whose money it was were not the forgiving kind. In June of 1947, Siegel was shot dead through the window of a house in Beverly Hills. Nobody was ever convicted of it. And here is the detail that matters more than the murder. The Flamingo, under new management within days, went on to make money. A lot of it. The lesson landed hard in Chicago, in Cleveland, in Kansas City, in Miami. There is a place in the desert where gambling, the thing we run in basements and back rooms everywhere else in America, is legal, where the count happens in the open, where the police are not a cost of doing business but a formality. So they came. Through the 1950s, the Strip bloomed like something unnatural in the desert, and nearly every gorgeous new carpet joint had, somewhere behind its licensed frontmen, money and muscle from organized crime. The Desert Inn, the Sands in 1952, the Sahara, the Riviera, the Dunes in 1955, the Tropicana, and in 1958, the Stardust, a colossus aimed not at high rollers but at ordinary tourists, with a sign out front like a hallucination, a whole galaxy of neon and light bulbs, planets and comets, visible from miles out in the dark. Where does a gangster get the money to build a palace? Not from a bank. No respectable bank in America would finance a casino. Gambling was a vice industry, and the people running it had police files. So the money came sideways. It came from mob treasuries in the Midwest. And famously, it came from the Teamsters Union, the Central States Pension Fund, the retirement money of truck drivers, loaned out to build casinos in the desert. That is one of the great dark jokes of American history. The honest wages of working men, skimmed and steered by corrupt officials, built the pleasure palaces of Las Vegas. But you have to be honest about what those palaces were like, because this is the part the corporate city can never quite fake. The mob-era strip was, by almost every account of the people who lived it, personal. The casinos were run by men who stood on the floor every night and knew their customers by name. Dinner was cheap, the rooms were cheap. The entertainment was the best on earth, and it was practically given away, because everything in the building existed to do one thing: get you to the tables, relaxed and happy, and feeling like a king. At the Sands, in a room called the Copa, the most famous entertainers alive worked the small stage. Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, Sammy Davis Jr. In 1960, they filmed Ocean's 11 in town by day and performed together at night. And for a stretch of years, the Sands was simply the coolest place in the Western Hemisphere. Presidents-to-be dropped in. The audience wore evening clothes. And when the show ended, the stars walked out into the casino and gambled and drank with everybody else until dawn. It was glamorous, and it was crooked, and those two facts were not in tension. They were the same fact. The glamour was the front. Behind it ran a machine, and the machine had one purpose. And to understand the fall of the old Las Vegas, you have to understand the machine. Every casino has a counting room. In the old Las Vegas, the counting room was the whole point. The scheme was called the skim, and it worked with beautiful simplicity. Cash flowed off the tables and out of the slot machines in rivers into the count room. And before that, cash was tallied and taxed and reported to the state of Nevada. A portion of it, quietly, nightly, went missing, skimmed off the top, packed into cases and carried by couriers back to the men in the Midwest whose hidden money had built the joint. Untaxed, untraceable, perfect. The bosses in Chicago and Kansas City and Cleveland never appeared on a gaming license. They didn't need to. They had frontmen with clean records to hold the paper, and they had their own people inside the count rooms, and the money flowed home like a tide. For a quarter of a century, the Strip was arguably the most profitable criminal enterprise in the United States, hiding in plain sight, lit up in neon, advertised in every newspaper in the country. Washington noticed early. At the start of the 1950s, Senator Estes Kefauver dragged organized crime into the television age with public hearings that named Las Vegas as a company town for the mob. America watched, fascinated. And then America booked a room. The publicity that was supposed to shame the city functioned as marketing. Sin, it turns out, does not suffer from being reported. But the pressure never fully lifted. And to see how the era actually ended, you can look at one casino, the Stardust. By the 1970s, the Stardust was effectively controlled by the Chicago outfit through hidden interests, and the man running it for them was a gambler named Frank Rosenthal, a handicapping genius who ran the place with obsessive brilliance while holding no proper license to do so. Alongside him in Las Vegas was his boyhood friend Anthony Spich, LOH Tro, a Chicago enforcer sent west to protect the arrangement, who instead built his own crew and pulled so much heat that he made the papers a public menace. If that story sounds familiar, it's because Martin Score, CZE, filmed a version of it. The movie is called Casino. Hollywood barely had to exaggerate. It came apart the way these things do. Wiretaps, indictments, informants, funerals. Nevada's regulators, tired of being a national punchline, created a blacklist of men banned from even standing inside a casino. Federal investigations traced the skim from the count rooms all the way back to the bosses in the Midwest, and this time the conviction stuck. In 1982, Rosenthal turned the key on his Cadillac outside a restaurant, and the car exploded. He survived and left Las Vegas for good. In 1986, Anthony Spich, LOH Tro, and his brother were beaten to death and buried in a cornfield in Indiana. The mob's Las Vegas did not end with a negotiation. It ended the way it began, with murders. And while the FBI was pulling the old order apart from one side, something quieter and far more powerful was pulling from the other. Because the state of Nevada had a problem the indictments couldn't solve. If the mob's money built this city, and the mob's money was leaving in handcuffs, whose money was going to replace it? The answer checked into the 9th floor of the Desert Inn on Thanksgiving weekend, 1966, and did not come out for 4 years. Howard Hughes arrived in Las Vegas the way he did everything by then, in secret, at night, on a stretcher, through a service entrance. He was one of the richest men alive, the aviator, the film producer, the defense contractor, a genuine American titan, curdled into a genuine American recluse. He took the top floor of the Desert Inn, sealed the windows, and vanished from human sight. The story Las Vegas has told ever since, and it's too good to skip, even if it's polished smooth, is that the Desert Inn eventually wanted its penthouse back. Those suites were reserved for high rollers, the whales who came in for the holidays and dropped fortunes at the tables. Hughes didn't gamble. Hughes didn't even come downstairs. Management pressed him to leave, and rather than pack, Howard Hughes bought the hotel. Then he kept going. Over the next few years, operating through aides from that blacked-out floor, Hughes bought casino after casino, the Sands among them, the very temple of the Rat Pack, along with land, an airport, a television station, seemingly half of everything that was for sale in southern Nevada. He never walked the floors of the casinos he owned. He may never have seen most of them except as light on the other side of a blacked-out window. He was, in the flesh, a ghost, a germophobic recluse in a darkened room, wasting away above the brightest city on earth. As a casino operator, Hughes was nothing special. That was never the point. The point was what his name did to the idea of Las Vegas. For 20 years, casino ownership had meant hidden partners in Chicago and a corpse every so often. Now the biggest holder on the Strip was a famous industrialist. Strange, yes, but legitimate, American, front page respectable. Nevada's politicians could finally say the words they had been rehearsing for a decade. The mob era is over. Las Vegas is clean now. Hughes laundered the city's reputation simply by showing up, without ever showing his face. By the time he was carried out of the Desert Inn in 1970, as secretly as he had arrived, the spell over the town had already changed. But the true revolution of those years wasn't a man. It was a law, and almost nobody outside Nevada noticed it pass. Until the end of the 1960s, Nevada's rules had an accidental side effect. Every owner of a casino had to be individually vetted and licensed, every single one, which meant a publicly traded corporation with thousands of stockholders whose shares changed hands every day, effectively could not own a casino. The rule designed to keep gambling honest had, for decades, kept legitimate corporate capital out and left the field to men whose financing didn't mind the shadows. The mob didn't just corrupt the old Las Vegas. In a sense, the licensing law had reserved Las Vegas for the mob. In 1969, Nevada changed the law. The Corporate Gaming Act let publicly traded companies hold casino licenses by vetting the executives and major stakeholders, not every last shareholder. It reads like a dry piece of regulatory housekeeping. It was a stick of dynamite with a very long fuse, because from that day forward, a casino was something a corporation could own, which meant Wall Street could finance it, which meant a casino could be a division, a line item, an asset in a portfolio. The count room now answered to auditors. The new breed arrived almost immediately. Kirk Kerkorian, a self-made Armenian-American from Fresno who had flown war-surplus planes and traded airlines, opened the International in 1969 just off the Strip, the largest hotel in the world at the time, and booked Elvis Presley, whose Las Vegas residency era began there. In 1973, Kerkorian did it again with the original MGM Grand, bigger still, named for the movie studio he controlled. Not a carpet joint with a lounge, a resort the size of a city, floated on corporate stock. The new era announced its dark side too. In 1980, the MGM Grand caught fire. Smoke poured through the tower, and 85 people died, one of the worst hotel fires in American history. It is worth pausing on, because the disaster rewrote fire codes across Nevada and beyond, and because the building itself is still there on the corner today, operating under a different name. In Las Vegas, even the tragedies get rebranded. Through the 1970s and 80s, the two systems ran side by side, aging mob houses still skimming toward the Midwest, and corporate towers rising next door, while the indictments thinned the old guard year by year. The gangsters were being removed, but their buildings, the sands, the dunes, the stardust, the neon galaxy signs, were still standing, still fading, still smelling of 40 years of cigarettes and spilled bourbon. The corporations had the licenses. The corporations had the capital. All they needed now was a reason to tear the old city down. In 1989, a man from upstate New York gave them one. A building so profitable it made every mob palace on the Strip look like a roadside motel. His name was Steve Wynn, and he had cut his teeth downtown, turning the golden nugget from a gambling hall into a jewel box. In November of 1989, on the Strip, he opened the Mirage, a golden windowed resort with a rainforest under glass in the lobby, white tigers on stage, and a volcano out front that erupted on schedule, free for anyone standing on the sidewalk. It cost a sum so enormous, well over $600 million, that skeptics openly questioned whether any casino could win enough to pay for it. The skeptics had the model backwards, and that's the hinge of this whole story. The old Las Vegas equation was simple. Everything is bait. The casino is the business. Cheap rooms, cheap steaks, subsidized Sinatra. All of it loss leader for the tables. The Mirage flipped the equation. The attraction was the business. The rooms, the restaurants, the shows, the shopping, each one priced to profit on its own, with a casino in the middle of it. The Mirage didn't just succeed, it obliterated every assumption about how much money a Las Vegas resort could make. And every board of directors in the industry stared at those numbers and reached the same conclusion at the same time. The old buildings weren't assets anymore. They were obstructions, small rooms, aging plumbing, low towers on gigantic parcels of the most valuable resort land in America. You couldn't renovate the 1950s out of them, but there was no law that said you had to renovate. What happened next has no real parallel in any other American city. Las Vegas did not merely demolish its history, it turned the demolition into a show. October 1993. Steve Wynn had bought the Dunes, the mob-built beauty from 1955, Neon Sultan and all, and he was opening Treasure Island, his new pirate-themed resort, up the Strip that same season. So the two events were fused into one broadcast spectacle. Before an enormous crowd, cannon fire from Treasure Island's pirate lagoon was staged as if it were the fatal shot. Fireworks tore up the sky, and the dunes, lights blazing, buckled and dropped into its own footprint. People cheered like it was New Year's Eve. Understand what that was. A corporation dynamiting a mob casino as the opening act for its own product launch, and the whole city applauded. On the Dunes' grave, Wynn built the Legio, a $1 billion-plus Italian lake fantasy with dancing fountains and a fine art gallery, which opened in 1998 and instantly became the new definition of Las Vegas. Once the town learned the trick, the fuses never stopped burning. In 1996, the Sands, the Copa Room, the stage where the Rat Pack held court, the single most storied building in the history of the Strip, was closed and brought down. There was no way to make the Summit-era math work in a corporate spreadsheet, and sentiment has no line item. In its place, a businessman named Sheldon A.D. Ulson, who had made his fortune running a computer trade show, built the Venetian, canals with singing gondoliers, a painted sky, and one of the largest hotel complexes on Earth, welded to a convention machine. On the ground where Sinatra drank with presidents, tourists now ride gondolas past a mall. They kept coming down. The Hassi Ian de the South End, dropped on New Year's Eve as televised entertainment, cleared the way for Mandalay Bay. The Aladdin came down for a bigger Aladdin. The landmark's flying saucer tower fell and became parking. Each implosion drew crowds, t-shirts, countdown chants. The city that had once buried its secrets in the desert at midnight now performed its burials in prime time. And then, in 2007, the era closed with the one that meant the most. The Stardust, the neon galaxy itself, the outfit's crown jewel, Frank Rosenthal's old kingdom, the last great monument of the Skim, had ended up in the hands of a legitimate gaming corporation, as everything eventually did. In the dark of an early March morning, with fireworks streaming off its roofline, the tower fell. The company's plans for the site stalled when the financial crisis hit the following year, and for over a decade the grave of the Stardust sat as a half-built steel skeleton, until a new mega-resort finally rose there, opened in 2021, owned by a casino corporation based in Malaysia. Read that sentence again slowly. The ground where Chicago hoods once counted their skim now reports quarterly earnings to investors on the other side of the world. By the time the Stardust dust settled, the transformation was arithmetic. The mob had been gone for a generation. Now the buildings were gone too. Of the neon and showgirls strip that the whole world still pictures when it hears the words Las Vegas, essentially nothing remained standing. A fact the city has never printed on a postcard. So who owns Las Vegas now? The answer is shorter than you'd think, and that's the story. Kirk Kerkorian, the man who built the world's biggest hotel twice, did it a third time in 1993 with a new MGM Grand, an emerald green giant with thousands of rooms. Then his company stopped building rivals and started buying them. In 2000, MGM swallowed Steve Wynn's entire empire, the Mirage, the Bellagio, Treasure Island, the crown jewels of the new Las Vegas, in one of the largest gaming deals ever done to that point. Wynn, the man who had taught the Strip the mega-resort formula, was bought out of his own creations by a bigger balance sheet. He took the money, bought the old Desert Inn, Hughes's old haunt, tore it down, and built a resort with his own name on it in glowing letters, because in the new Las Vegas, even the visionaries end up as brands. A few years later, MGM absorbed the Mandalay Group and its whole southern end of the Strip. Meanwhile, the Harrah's organization took over Caesars and eventually took its name, rolling up resort after resort under the Caesars banner. Follow all the mergers to the bottom line, and you land on a fact that would have been unthinkable in 1960. The overwhelming majority of the famous Las Vegas Strip, the hotels, the casinos, the very sidewalks worth of frontage, came to be controlled by a small handful of giant corporations, with two names, MGM and Caesars, on the lion's share of it. The Strip stopped being a street of competing joints run by rival crews. It became something closer to a portfolio, managed for yield. One company's properties lined up next door to each other for miles, and behind even those names, ownership kept abstracting. In recent years, the trend has been for the corporations to sell the physical buildings to real estate investment trusts and lease them back. So the company running your blackjack table may be a tenant, and your actual landlord is a fund. The Desert Inn had a count room. The new Strip has a capital structure. The revenue tells the deepest truth. For the first 50 years of Las Vegas, gambling was the business. and everything else was bait. Somewhere around the turn of the millennium, the lines crossed. The Strip's resorts began making the majority of their money from everything except gambling. Rooms, restaurants, nightclubs, shows, shopping, convention space. The casino, the thing the city was invented for, became one department among several. That is why your room is no longer cheap. That is why the steak is no longer subsidized. The old city comped you because it wanted you at the tables. The new city has no reason to give anything away, because you, standing there holding a $40 cocktail in a souvenir cup, are the table. The nickel and diming that visitors complain about, the resort fees stacked on top of the room rate, the parking that stopped being free in the mid-2010s after decades of Las Vegas bragging that it never charged, the surcharge on the surcharge. None of that is an accident or a lapse in hospitality. It is the model. A mob boss skimmed the count room and left the customer alone. The customer was the golden goose, treated to cheap prime rib and a free show. The corporation cannot skim itself. It audits itself. So the margin has to come from somewhere, and it comes from you, itemized, with taxes and fees at checkout. And something softer disappeared along the way, harder to put a number on. The lounge culture died. The free late-night second-tier acts, the singer at 2 a.m. playing to 40 people. The floor bosses who knew 1,000 customers by name gave way to loyalty programs that know 10 million customers by data. The showgirl production numbers faded away as their theaters went to residencies and imported spectacle. Ask the old-timers, the dealers, the cocktail waitresses, the musicians who worked both eras, and they will grant you that the new city is safer, cleaner, more honest. And then they will tell you, almost to a person, that the old one was warmer, that it saw you. Both things appear to be true, and that is the trade Las Vegas made. Walk the Strip today, and pay attention to what you're actually walking through. You enter the Roman Palace and find yourself in the Forum Shops, a luxury shopping mall under a painted sky that cycles from dawn to dusk on a timer, where the storefronts are the same brands you'd find in Beverly Hills or Dubai. Cross to the Venetian, and you drift through another mall, this one with a canal running down the middle of it, the gondolier's song echoing off the ceiling. The pyramids, the castles, the Eiffel Tower at half scale. Every fantasy facade funnels you, sooner or later, into the same experience. Retail corridors, a food hall, a day club, a ticket counter. The joke writes itself, but it's not a joke, it's the business plan. The Las Vegas Strip is a chain of climate-controlled shopping malls that happen to have hotel towers on top and slot machines in the lobby. The newest icons don't even pretend to be casinos. The Sphere, the colossal orb at the east edge of the Strip corridor that opened in 2023, its outer shell a screen visible from the air, is a concert venue. The Raiders play in a stadium by the freeway. The city has a hockey team that won a championship. Formula One cars now race down Las Vegas Boulevard at night past the fountains. It's dazzling. It fills the plains. And notice what it is. Sports, concerts, shopping, dining, the entertainment portfolio of any large American city, executed at maximum scale and price. The thing Las Vegas once sold that no other American city would, the permission, the danger, the wink, has been diluted to a marketing tone of voice. What happens here, stays here, is a slogan written by an ad agency for corporations that report what happens here, quarterly, to the SEC. And the demolition never actually stopped. In 2024, the Tropicana, one of the last surviving names from the 1950s Strip, mobbed up in its youth like all the rest, was closed and imploded to clear ground for a baseball stadium. The Athletics' planned new home. That same year, the Mirage shut its doors. The Mirage, the building that invented the modern Strip in 1989, to be gutted and reborn as a hard rock with a guitar-shaped tower. The volcano went dark. Even the revolution gets demolished by the next revolution. In this city, the wrecking ball is the one tradition that has never lapsed. Here's the strangest part, the part that makes Las Vegas maybe the most honest, dishonest place in America. The new owners knew exactly what they had destroyed, because they immediately began selling it back. The mob era, safely dead, became the city's favorite costume. There is a museum downtown devoted to organized crime, and it is excellent, and it is beloved. Casino plays somewhere on cable every week of the year, a 2-hour advertisement for a city that dynamited every location in it. Gift shops move Rat Pack posters by the pallet. The corporation spent 15 years erasing the physical mob city, then discovered that its ghost was the most valuable brand asset they owned. You cannot sleep in the sands, but you can buy its logo on a t-shirt in a mall standing on its grave. So the name is a promise the place can no longer keep, and the machine runs on the gap between them. 40 million visitors a year arrive carrying a picture in their heads. Neon, showgirls, sharkskin suits, a singer holding a note in a smoky room, and they spend 4 days inside an air-conditioned retail resort, itemized fees at checkout, and most of them never notice that the city in their head and the city under their feet share nothing but a name and a desert. The fantasy doesn't need the buildings anymore. The fantasy is load-bearing all by itself. And before you shake your head at the tourists, sit with this. The old Las Vegas looked you in the eye, learned your name, comped your dinner, and picked your pocket at the tables, because that was the machine. The new Las Vegas doesn't bother to learn your name. It has your data, and it picks your pocket at checkout, because that is the machine. The city has always sold a beautiful lie and charged for it on the way out. The mob understood that. The shareholders understand it. The only ones who keep forgetting are the rest of us, standing on the sidewalk where the stardust used to be, under all that light, looking for a city that was dynamited before we got there, and buying a ticket to the memory, which was, of course, always for sale. The neon sign says Las Vegas. It isn't lying about the location, just about everything else.